Lena Cross was tired, bone tired. After the long drive, she'd finally left city life behind, trading the constant hum of traffic for the quiet wind through oak leaves and the distant stars unpolluted by neon. Her new home was a two-story house on the edge of a wooded area, the forest pressing just beyond her yard. She'd bought it as a fresh start, after a messy breakup, after the burnout, after years of feeling like someone was always watching her. The moving boxes were still stacked in corners. Unpacked things littered the floors. The first night, she pulled up into the drive, looked up at the broad oaks towering over the house, and told herself peace would come, sleep would be uninterrupted. She'd finally made it. That night, Lena lay in bed, wide awake. Her bedroom window faced three tall oaks. Moonlight spilled through partially drawn curtains, casting branch-shaped shadows across the ceiling. She heard a soft scratching, then the brush of something against glass. No, against outside, not inside. She froze, heart pounding. A leaf scraped the window pane, or so she told herself. Her dog, Shadow, a slender German shepherd mix, twitched and sat up beside her. Lena patted its side. Just the wind, she whispered. She got up and checked the window. Latched tight, curtains closed, then back to bed. The wood floor cold under her feet. Sleep came in fragments. She dreamed of eyes in the trees. In the morning, she dismissed it. She had a lot to do. Paint, shelving, unpacking. But she kept seeing blurred silhouettes through the trees from her kitchen window. Always just shadows, always still, always watching. A week passed. Lena began to settle in. She liked the quiet, no neighbors close. The woods behind her home made her feel adrift. Free, maybe, but also vulnerable. One evening, after sunset, she sat on the porch with Shadow by her feet, reading. The cicadas buzzed far off. A soft wind rustled leaves. She sipped tea, listening to that natural silence she'd longed for. A branch tapped against a window upstairs. Soft. Shadow lifted his head. Ears pricked. Lena frowned and stood, putting the tea down. She climbed the stairs to her bedroom, heart ticking loud in her chest. From the window she saw it. A silhouette perched in one of the oak trees. A form, thin, human-like, hugging a branch. It didn't move more than what a resting animal might, but the posture, knees drawn, arms limp, and the face, blank, pale, hollow, sent cold through her bones. She backed away, thought maybe the angle was wrong. Optical illusion, sleep-deprived mind. She closed the curtain. That night she hardly slept. Shadow whimpered at the bedroom door. The next nights were worse. Lena began hearing scratching on her second-story windows. It sounded like fingernails, sometimes dragging. Shadow would growl, stand protectively by the door. One night, she awoke around 2:30 a.m. The house was silent. She heard glass against the window, whispering, so soft, she thought she imagined it. It ended when she breathed too loudly. Lena lay still, shaking, Shadow at her side. She did not move until dawn. In the morning, she found small scratches along the windowsill, shallow, thin, irregular, like someone had pressed fingernails. No footprints outside, mud on the ground from previous rain, but not fresh. Lena told herself to be rational. Maybe birds, maybe squirrels. She bought outdoor lights, motion sensors. She installed cameras, pointing at windows and the trees. She showed neighbors. They offered sympathy, but no answers. That night, she reviewed camera footage. Nothing. Static at times. Shadows moving between branches. Rustling, but nothing clear. One late night, Lena was working at her computer, Shadow asleep in the hallway. She felt compelled to look out the bedroom window, needed to know if the silhouette was there again. It was, exactly where she had seen it before, high in the oak, limbs wrapped around the trunk. She squinted. The figure's face was blank, featureless, but something about the posture, the lean, the tilt of the head, it looked like it was watching her, specifically. She backed away, heart pounding, the rustle of leaves. A shape shifted. Suddenly, a soft knock, not on the door, but on the outside wall near the window. A long, low tap. Lena froze. Shadow barked once. Lena's hands shook as she approached. She peeked through a crack in the curtains. Nothing. No one. Just the trees' branches in moonlight. Shadows. The camera feed, after she checked it, showed nothing at that moment. Just moonlight and leaves. Lena's anxiety grew. She walked with jumpiness, missed sleep. The air in her house felt thicker. The tree outside seemed ever closer. Maybe the windows looked transparent at night. Maybe she caught movement just when she shifted her gaze. One night, the phone rang. No one on the line. Only static. She hung up. The lights flickered. She checked the security camera feed. Image was distorted. Static. Then a flash of white. Maybe the figure. She tried to reach out to someone. A local paranormal investigation group. Or a friend. They suggested using infrared or night vision, checking from outside. She borrowed a camcorder, set it up facing the tree and window. She stayed in bed with Shadow, camera rolling. Around midnight, the scratching came again. Louder, urgent. Shadow growled. On the night vision cam, a pale face entered frame. Mid-branch, bloodless skin, hollow black eye sockets. It shifted, then disappeared. The scratching stopped. For a heartbeat, everything was silent. Then a heavy thump, like something falling. From just outside her door, she bolted upright. Shadow barked. She flicked the light. Nothing. Dark. Sleep eluded her. Lena became obsessed with staring out windows, checking every reflection. Her phone photos at night showed faint shapes. Her friends said she was overreacting, thought it was shadows and branches, but Lena knew. One night, she dreamt she walked outside, silent, the air cold, the trees looming. She saw the silhouette again. He looked like a tall man, skin pale like wax, limbs long. He raised a hand, as if beckoning. She woke sweating. The curtains were parted. The windowsill scratched again. Shadow was gone from her bedside. She searched. Dog nowhere. Panic. Then rustling outside. Scratching under the porch. She grabbed her phone for light. Moved toward window. The silhouette stood behind glass. His face pressed flat against it. Featureless. Stretched thin. Mouth open, but no voice. Just the breathing. Dark and wet. Lena screamed. Ran out of the room. Down the stairs. She reached the front door. Locked. She fumbled keys. Behind her, soft footsteps upstairs. Door creaked. She opened door, ran into night, sprinted down driveway. Leaves whipped, moon bright overhead. But when she looked back, the shape stood at her window, eyes lit faintly, watching. She never went back that night, stayed in car with the engine on, until dawn. Around dawn, she summoned courage, called paranormal group. They came with infrared, lights, and a drone to fly by the oak tree. Lena joined them. They scanned, saw nothing at first. Then the drone camera caught something. Mid-branch, the shape. The figure crept among limbs, shifting at unnatural angles. Was that movement? Twisting joints? It looked wrong. They tried shining spotlight. It darted away. One investigator caught a photo. Pale hand pressed to bark. Fingers elongated. Another heard whispering. unintelligible, breathy. Lena felt a tug, a presence, like someone inside her mind. Flashbacks to all nights she'd been watched. The group tried to record audio. She asked it to speak. The wind answered through canopy, but a voice, stay, low, hollow. After that, Lena fled, packed a bag, dog beside her. She left the house. For weeks, stayed in motel, lights on, curtains closed. Photos showed shadows in windows, scratches deeper, the feeling, always, someone watching. Months later, she returned to sell house. New owners bought it. She walked through one last time. The oak tree still stood. At her bedroom window, a fresh scratch. Tiny, precise. She touched it. Skin prickled. She sold the house. When she moved out, the final message came. In one of the photos, saved on security system, time-stamped after she left. Blank face in tree, eyes glowing, mouth smiling. Lena deleted the photo. But the feeling? She knows it follows. Still, Claire Evans never thought small towns could feel so empty at night. She'd moved to rural Pennsylvania after her divorce, eager to start fresh in a little house at the edge of town. It was cozy, a bit creaky, but she liked the quiet. Compared to the city, it felt safe. The house backed onto an overgrown field that stretched for acres before dissolving into dark woods. Her nearest neighbor was half a mile down the road. At first, the solitude felt liberating. She could read on the porch, sip wine, and breathe without the weight of crowded streets. But her first night was restless. Around 1 a.m., she thought she heard something outside, like crunching footsteps in grass. She peeked through the blinds, but saw nothing, just the empty field glowing faintly under the moon. Shadowy, but still. She went back to bed. 2 weeks later, Claire sat watching late-night TV. The lamp dim. She almost drifted asleep when she noticed movement outside her living room window. At first, she thought it was reflection, her own movement, but then it leaned closer. A man's face, pale, expressionless, just inches from the glass, watching. Claire's breath froze. She scrambled backward, heart thundering. The man didn't move, didn't blink, just stared through the window, as though the glass wasn't even there. She grabbed her phone, hands shaking, and dialed 911. By the time police arrived, the yard was empty, no footprints in the damp soil, no sign anyone had been there at all. Probably a prank, the officer muttered. Kids out late. Lock your windows. Claire nodded, but deep down she knew it wasn't kids. The stillness in that pale face. It was wrong. After that night, Claire kept her curtains closed, but it didn't stop the sound. Late at night, she began hearing faint scratching at the windows, sometimes at the bedroom, sometimes at the kitchen, slow, deliberate, like fingernails dragging across glass. One morning, she found small scratches etched into the outer window pane, tiny, shallow grooves. She ran her hand over them, chilled. She bought cameras, installed them around the house. The first week, nothing unusual, a stray raccoon, branches swaying. But on the fourth night, one camera caught a shape, tall, thin, standing at the very edge of the field, facing the house. Still, for hours, it never moved closer, never turned away. Claire's dog, Max, began barking at the windows every night, low guttural growls. His fur bristled. At 3:17 a.m. one night, Claire woke to hear her dog whimpering, not barking. She got up, barefoot, creeping toward the living room. She froze at the sound of whispering, not outside, inside. It was faint, like someone pressed their lips right against the window screen. Words too muffled to understand, but rhythmic. A chant. Claire's heart hammered. She yanked the curtain aside. Nothing. Empty yard. But Max was trembling, tail between his legs. The whispering stopped the instant she looked. Claire told her neighbors. They looked at her with pity. "Oh, honey, you've got the window man," one old woman said. "The what?" Stories go back decades. Some folks see him in the fields, standing at the glass. He doesn't break in, just watches, but she trailed off, eyes dark. Some people who saw him, they left town. Others, well, they didn't leave at all. Claire tried to laugh it off, but the dread stuck. That night she heard tapping on the glass again. She filmed it with her phone, shaking hands. Reviewing it later, she nearly dropped the phone. A face, pale and smooth, pressed right up to the glass, eyes too wide, mouth curled into the faintest smile. And then, frame by frame, it blinked. The police stopped answering her calls. No forced entry, no crime, they said. But Claire knew. The window man was getting bolder. One stormy night, she woke to the sound of wood creaking. Her bedroom window was unlocked. She swore she had latched it. The curtain stirred in the breeze. Max growled, then whimpered, backing into the hallway. Claire crept closer, clutching a flashlight. She pulled the curtain back. The window was wide open. Rain blew in. And standing in the yard, closer than ever before, was the man, his pale face tilted, his body impossibly still, despite the storm whipping around him. When the lightning flashed, for just an instant, he wasn't outside. He was inside. Claire decided to leave. Bags packed. She'd drive through the night, never look back. But the window man didn't let her go. As she stepped into the hallway, she froze. Every window in the house was wide open, curtains swayed, rain dripping onto the floors. Whispers filled the air, low, overlapping, countless voices. She bolted for the door, Max barking wildly, but the front door wouldn't budge. Something pressed against it from the outside. Then she saw it, through every single window at once, the man's face, multiplying, filling every pane of glass with pale, expressionless watchers. She screamed, clutching her dog, retreating toward the bathroom. She slammed the door, locked it, but in the mirror, she saw his face staring back. Days later, neighbors reported Claire missing. Police found her car still in the driveway, bags packed inside. The house was locked from the inside. Her dog, Max, was never found. The only clue, on every window, from the inside, were handprints, dozens of them, pressed into the glass, perfectly clean, as though something had been watching from within all along. And sometimes, late at night, neighbors swear they see a pale face at Claire's old windows, waiting for the next tenant. The House, That Watches, Part 1. The auction Ethan and Lila had never imagined they could own a house so soon. They were young, recently married, with modest jobs, and even more modest savings. But when a listing appeared for an old Victorian home on the edge of town, at a price far below market value, they felt like fate was finally on their side. The auction house was crowded that Saturday morning. Most bidders looked skeptical, whispering to each other while the auctioneer droned on. Ethan noticed how quickly the price dropped, as though no one truly wanted it. "Why is it so cheap?" Lila whispered. An older woman sitting nearby leaned toward her. Her eyes were sunken, her voice gravelly. "Because the house watches," she said. Then she turned away, without another word. Ethan chuckled nervously, but Lila shivered. By the end of the auction, they had placed the winning bid, shockingly low. Papers were signed, hands were shaken, and by Monday morning, they were standing in front of their new home. The house was huge, with peeling paint and cracked shutters. Its tall windows glinted in the morning light like watchful eyes. The front door groaned when Ethan unlocked it. Inside, the air was stale, carrying the faint scent of dust and something else, something metallic. "This place just needs love," Ethan said, trying to sound optimistic. Lila wasn't so sure. She swore she felt the weight of the house pressing down on her, as though the walls themselves were aware of their arrival. That night, they lay in their new bedroom, surrounded by unpacked boxes. The wind outside rattled the windows. Lila turned to Ethan. "It feels like someone's watching us." Ethan kissed her forehead and laughed it off. But just before sleep took her, Lila thought she saw movement in the reflection of the tall wardrobe mirror, something standing in the doorway that wasn't Ethan. Part 2. The windows, the second week in the house. Lila began noticing the windows. Every room had at least two, sometimes three, tall, narrow panes of warped glass that distorted the light and reflected strangely. At first, she thought it was just the age of the house, imperfections in the glass. But one evening, as she stood in the dining room, she froze. The window facing the garden wasn't showing the garden at all. Instead, she saw herself sitting at the table, pale, motionless, dead-eyed. She gasped and stumbled backward, the vision vanishing in an instant. When Ethan rushed in, she tried to explain, but the words sounded absurd, even to her. "Stress," he said gently. "You've been unpacking all day." But it happened again and again. In the kitchen, the window above the sink showed her reflection, but not current. She was older, hair streaked with gray, tears running down her face. In the upstairs hall, one window reflected Ethan standing behind her when he wasn't even home. By the third incident, Lila refused to look at them directly. She closed curtains, covered panes with sheets, but still, sometimes she caught movement in the glass. One night, she woke to find Ethan standing by the window in their bedroom, staring outside. "Come back to bed," she whispered. He turned slowly. His face was pale, drained, his eyes glassy. "I can see us," he said flatly. "We're already dead." When morning came, Ethan claimed he didn't remember leaving the bed. Part 3. The whispers. It wasn't just the windows anymore. Lila began hearing voices at night. Faint, hushed whispers echoing through the halls. She tried to follow them once, tiptoeing barefoot past half-unpacked boxes, but no matter where she went, the whispers seemed just beyond reach, drifting from room to room, vanishing when she got too close. Ethan dismissed it. Old houses creak, pipes moan, "You're spooking yourself." But she knew the difference between pipes and whispers. One night, unable to resist, she pressed her ear against the parlor wall. Her blood went cold. The voice wasn't vague this time. It was her own. "Leave," it said, in her voice, low and trembling. "Before the house keeps you." She recoiled, clutching her chest, gasping. The next day, she told Ethan they needed to move. "This house isn't right. It's watching us. It's speaking to me." Ethan frowned. "We can't just leave. We spent everything on this place." "It's in your head, Lila." But that night, Ethan woke screaming. He claimed something had been whispering into his ear while he slept, something that wasn't human. The house had finally spoken to him too. Part 6. The Eyes. After the basement incident, Ethan boarded up the small door with plywood and nails. He even stacked boxes in front of it. But it didn't help. The whispers grew louder at night, slipping through the cracks in the walls, and soon they weren't just whispers. One morning, Lila woke to find faint outlines pressed into the wallpaper, small circular impressions clustered together. At first, she thought it was water damage, but when the sunlight shifted, she realized what they were: eyes, dozens of them, perfectly round, bulging shapes just beneath the plaster. She screamed for Ethan. When he arrived, the shapes were gone, just flat wall. But that night, as they lay in bed, Lila couldn't sleep. She kept staring at the ceiling, and then she saw it. Two glowing eyes peering down from above, watching her. She bolted upright, heart racing. Ethan looked too, and saw nothing. But as he comforted her, he shivered, because he'd felt it too. That undeniable sense of being observed. From that night forward, they avoided the mirrors and windows, but the eyes followed them anyway, appearing in reflections, in the shine of a kettle, even in the blackness of their coffee. It wasn't just the house watching anymore. It was everywhere. Part 7. The Escape Attempt. Lila couldn't take it anymore. "We're leaving," she told Ethan, throwing clothes into a suitcase. "I don't care if we're broke. We're leaving tonight." Ethan agreed, though reluctantly. He was pale, sleep-deprived, muttering things under his breath that didn't make sense. Still, he carried the bags to the front door. But when he pulled it open, their jaws dropped. The door didn't lead outside. It opened directly into the living room. They tried the back door. Same thing. The kitchen door led into the dining room. Every exit looped back inside. Panic set in. They tried the windows, smashing the glass with chairs. But instead of air rushing in, they only saw other rooms of the house through the broken panes. Rooms that didn't exist. One window showed a bedroom filled with blood. Another showed the basement door swinging open. Ethan hurled a chair, screaming, but the glass only rippled like water. They were trapped. The house wasn't letting them go. Part 8. The ending days blurred together. Lila lost track of time. The whispers became voices. The voices became screams. Ethan stopped eating, muttering constantly about the eyes in the walls. One night, Lila woke to find him gone. She searched every room, panic rising, until she heard his voice calling from the basement. She hesitated, then crept down the stairs. The plywood was gone. The small door stood wide open, and beyond, the glow of hundreds of windows flickered. Ethan was standing in the center of the chamber, arms spread wide, eyes glowing faintly. "It sees us now," he whispered. "We belong here." Before Lila could reach him, the windows began to shatter, one by one. But instead of breaking outward, they broke inward. Hands clawed through the glass, dragging Ethan screaming into the void. Lila ran, heart in her throat, but the staircase twisted endlessly. When she finally reached the top, she was no longer in the house she knew. She was standing in a room made entirely of windows. Each one reflected her own terrified face, dozens of versions of herself staring back, and in every reflection, a pair of glowing eyes appeared behind her. The police found the house empty weeks later, no sign of Ethan or Lila. But neighbors swore the curtains sometimes shifted on their own, as though someone or something was peeking out. The house had new owners now, and it was watching them too. The silent forest. When Tyler suggested a weekend camping trip, everyone agreed instantly. They were college seniors, tired of exams, and eager for one last adventure before graduation. Tyler, Mia, Jordan, and Claire packed their gear, loaded up the car, and drove north to a stretch of forest few people visited anymore. Locals called it the Silent Forest. Why do they call it that? Claire asked as the car wound through the back roads. Tyler shrugged. Old legend. Supposedly, no birds sing here, no animals make a sound. Just silence. Jordan smirked. Creepy. Perfect for a campfire story. When they arrived, the forest was breathtaking. Towering pines, moss-covered rocks, shafts of sunlight piercing the canopy. But as they stepped out of the car, Claire frowned. It was true. No birds, no buzzing insects, just an unnatural stillness. So complete, it made her ears ring. They hiked in, pitched their tent near a clearing, and tried to shake the unease. By nightfall, a fire crackled, and the four friends laughed, roasting marshmallows. But when the flames died down, the silence pressed closer. No crickets, no owls, just their own breathing. Claire whispered, "It feels like the forest is listening to us." The others laughed it off, but when Mia woke in the middle of the night, she swore she heard faint footsteps circling the tent, slow, deliberate, barefoot. She held her breath, listening. The footsteps stopped, and then silence again. Morning light brought relief. Tyler brewed coffee on a portable stove, while Jordan joked about Mia's overactive imagination. But Mia wasn't convinced. As they packed supplies for a day hike, Claire noticed something odd. Around the campsite, in the soft dirt, were footprints. Bare, human. They circled the tent again and again, weaving closer before retreating into the trees. "Someone's messing with us," Tyler muttered. Locals trying to spook campers. But the prints were small, too small for a grown man, almost childlike. The group pressed on, hiking deeper into the forest. Hours passed, but the silence never broke. No rustling in the underbrush, no distant calls. Even their voices seemed swallowed too quickly, as if the trees absorbed every sound. By sunset, they were exhausted. They returned to camp, uneasy, but trying to stay positive. Another fire, another round of nervous laughter. But that night, as they lay in their sleeping bags, Claire's eyes flew open. She heard whispering. At first, she thought it was Jordan talking in his sleep, but when she leaned closer, her blood ran cold. The voice was hers, whispering her own name over and over from just outside the tent. The next morning, Claire didn't mention what she'd heard. She didn't want the others to think she was cracking under the pressure of the forest, but her silence weighed on her. As the day wore on, the group tried to distract themselves. They explored a rocky ridge, snapped photos, and even dared each other to shout into the trees. Tyler's voice echoed faintly before vanishing into the void, like the woods had swallowed it whole. When night fell again, the tension thickened. They built another fire, trying to hold on to some sense of normalcy, but after hours of forced laughter, exhaustion took over. One by one, they drifted into uneasy sleep. Claire woke first. Her eyes fluttered open, and she realized the fire had died. The forest around them was pitch black. She lay still, listening. At first, there was only silence, but then, faint, hushed voices. She bolted upright. The voices weren't coming from a distance. They were circling the tent. Tyler, one whispered, in a perfect imitation of Claire's voice. Mia, another hissed, but it was Jordan's voice speaking. The friends stirred, confused, as the voices grew louder. It wasn't just one or two. There were dozens, mimicking every word they had spoken earlier that day. Jokes, laughter, casual chatter, all repeating in warped, distorted tones. Mia clutched Tyler's arm. It's us, she whispered. They're copying us. Jordan unzipped the tent in a burst of panic, shining his flashlight into the clearing. Nothing. But the voices stopped instantly, as if cut off by a blade. The silence crashed down again, heavier than before. And then they noticed something new. In the dirt, just beyond the fire pit, were fresh footprints. This time, not just circling the tent. They led straight into the trees, and every set of prints looked exactly like their own. By sunrise, panic had settled in. One of them was missing. Jordan had gone. The tent flap was closed, their sleeping bags untouched, but he wasn't there. Claire screamed his name. Tyler and Mia called out, their voices swallowed by the oppressive stillness. They searched the immediate area, shining flashlights into the shadows of the towering pines. Nothing, no footprints in the soft soil beyond the ones that already unnervingly mimicked their own. No signs of struggle, only the eerie quiet, thicker than ever. Maybe he went for water, Tyler tried, but his voice trembled. He must have wandered off. Claire shook her head. The forest, it's not normal, it's alive somehow. It doesn't want us to leave. Hours passed. They scoured the nearby paths, following the faint trail of Jordan's footprints, but the tracks led in circles, returning them to the same clearing every time. Then, they noticed something on the trees. Faces, carved crudely at first, twisted and elongated, but unmistakably human, some with mouths open in silent screams, others with blank, staring eyes, and with each face they found, the sense of being watched intensified. By evening, desperation had set in. They could hear the faint whispers again, this time from deeper in the forest, calling names, laughing in their own voices. Claire's heart raced. We have to leave. Now. Tyler nodded, pulling them both along as they ran toward what they hoped was the forest edge. But every path led them back to the same clearing. Jordan was gone, and they began to fear he had become one of them. Exhausted, they stumbled through the dense underbrush and found it, a small, dilapidated cabin tucked between twisted trees. Finally, Mia whispered, some shelter. Inside, dust coated every surface. Old furniture, broken glass, and a fireplace filled with cold ash. On a table, a stack of yellowed journals and papers, brittle with age. Claire picked one up and began reading. The pages told of campers from decades past who had entered the forest and vanished. The last entries were written in a trembling hand. The silence watches, it mimics. If you hear your voice, you're already taken. They do not leave. Another page included a crude map of the forest, with circles marking the trap zones. The last note simply read, once you see it, you belong to the silent forest. Escape is impossible, Tyler and Mia read in horror. They realized the footprints, the voices, the carved faces. They were part of some ancient cycle. The forest didn't just trap people physically, it trapped them in memory, in reflection, in sound. As night fell, the cabin seemed to shift around them. Shadows stretched unnaturally. Corners of the room darkened in ways that defied logic. Then they saw him, Jordan, or what looked like Jordan, standing silently in the doorway, skin pale and taut, eyes hollow. His movements were wrong, too smooth, too precise, like a puppet mimicking human motion. Jordan? Claire asked, voice trembling. He tilted his head. No response. Then he spoke, in Jordan's exact voice, word for word, but the tone was wrong. Hollow, empty. We should leave, he said. It's waiting for us. The friends realized the horrifying truth. The forest didn't just trap its victims, it copied them. It learned their voices, their habits, their faces. It created imitators to lure others, to confuse them, to drag them deeper into the cycle. Claire backed away, gripping Mia's hand. Tyler tried to move toward the door, but the imitation of Jordan blocked him. The whispers returned, louder, surrounding them. They repeated their own panicked words, mocking and twisting them. Panic overtook reason. The three remaining friends fled the cabin, diving into the thick forest. Every path they took seemed familiar, and yet different. Branches scratched their faces, roots tripped them, and the forest seemed alive, closing in around them. From the darkness, dozens of footprints appeared. Imitators? Shadows? They couldn't tell. Every whispered call of their names came from multiple directions at once. Claire turned a corner and screamed. An exact copy of herself stood there, grinning. Mia's heart raced. Her own voice echoed from 1,000 lips, screaming silently. Tyler tried to fight, but a shadowy figure grabbed his arm. He struggled, but disappeared into the darkness, with a final scream that blended with the forest's whispers. The forest swallowed them whole. Claire was the only one left. She ran blindly until she stumbled into a clearing near the edge of the forest. The first rays of dawn illuminated her path. Relief surged, but it was short-lived. Her voice was gone. No matter how much she screamed, not a sound emerged. Behind her, she saw movement, shapes, countless copies of Jordan, Tyler, Mia, and herself, all staring, waiting, their eyes hollow, their mouths opened, but no sound came out. Claire stumbled toward the road, exhausted, broken, voiceless. When she finally reached civilization, she tried to tell the story. No one heard her. No one understood her writing. The memories of her friends were blurred, erased in the eyes of those who never entered the forest. Years later, Claire would visit the edge of the woods again, drawn by a compulsion she could not resist. And there, in the shadows, the forest whispered her name in her own voice, inviting her back. The silent forest never let anyone truly leave.